The day Ozzy Osbourne tried to save Kurt Cobain on a cold November night in 1993, two legends breathed the same dim air under a hotel bar's dying chandelier. One was a young comet, burning fast and bright. The other, a scarred survivor who had learned how to live with the dark and still wake to dawn. This is the story of a conversation that didn't make headlines. A private exchange where fame had no entrance and masks were left at the door. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. If you love emotionally charged rock stories inspired by real lives and real battles, subscribe to Voices of Darkness. Hit like and share this video with a friend who needs to hear that even in the coldest night, a small light can be enough. The bar was the kind of place that pretended it had windows. Tall mirrors framed in brass. Bottles stacked like stained glass, shadows bending into shadows. The carpet smelled of spilled whiskey and old decisions. The piano in the corner had 4 keys out of tune, which meant no one dared touch it. A TV murmured somewhere above the liquor shelf, the sound muted, the images flickering like ghosts. Kurt slid onto a stool the way a wave meets a rock, softly, but with the memory of storms. He didn't notice the man in the corner, behind dark glasses that were less a disguise than a truce with the world. He just wanted the noise in his head to fold itself into something quieter than thunder. "Double," Kurt said, and watched the pour as if it were an hourglass. He had done interviews all day, the same questions, the same answers that sounded less true each time. Somewhere in a hallway of cameras and smiles, he had lost a name that meant anything. Fame is an echo. It can't tell you where the first sound came from. "Running won't help, mate," a voice said from the corner, warm and worn like a jacket that had been rained on too many times. "I've tried." Kurt turned, jaw set to cut. The glasses, the profile, familiar as a riff, burned into the brain. "Ozzy Osbourne," he said, half a joke, half a dare. "Do I get a bat-shaped souvenir with your autograph?" Ozzy didn't flinch. He lifted his glass, plain water, the ice chiming softly. "You can have the truth instead. It weighs less." Kurt exhaled through his nose, a small dragon of annoyance. "I don't need a lecture. Not from anyone with a nickname that starts with Prince of Darkness." "Darkness doesn't make me wrong," Ozzy said. "It just means I know the map." For a moment, nobody spoke. The barmaid drifted past like a slow tide. Laughter bubbled from a table of suits who believed they would live forever. Somewhere, a door thunked softly and the hotel swallowed the sound. Kurt's shoulders dropped, an almost invisible surrender. "Fine," he said, and took his glass to the corner booth. Up close, Ozzy's glasses were scratched, tiny crescent moons that caught the light. He looked like a man assembled from all the times he should have died and didn't, not triumphant. Just present. "When I look in the mirror," Kurt said, "I don't know who's staring back. Some days I think he wants my autograph. And some days," Ozzy replied, "he wants your blood." Kurt laughed, one note only. "You seem okay." "I am not okay," Ozzy said, smiling sideways. "I am awake." Big difference. They spoke in fragments at first, sentences that circled the point the way birds circle a storm. Kurt's fingers tapped the sweating glass, a pattern that wasn't quite rhythm, wasn't quite panic. He told Ozzy about the fatigue that had teeth, about the way the crowd's roar hollowed him out and filled him at the same time, about the little girl who made the sun behave and the woman who loved him like a mirror, honest, unforgiving. He spoke of music like it was a house he'd built by hand and now couldn't find the door. Ozzy listened the way only someone with old pain can listen, without interrupting the weather. When he finally spoke, it was with the weight of a memory he would never put down. "I woke up once," he said, "with the world in ruins and no idea how I'd done it. Sharon crying, me, lost. I was everything the papers said I was. And something worse, a man my children couldn't trust with his own hands." Kurt stared at the drink he no longer wanted. "How did you stop?" "Didn't stop, mate, chose. And then chose again in the morning. People think it's one waterfall. It's not. It's 1,000 cups of water you put down." Kurt's jaw worked and he nodded as if the gesture might grind truth into his bones. "I've tried clinics," he said. "Tried promises. The dark just waits outside and lets me finish my speech." "Then don't give speeches," Ozzy said. "Give minutes. Trade me 1 minute of not running for 1 minute of breathing. That's how we cheat the dark, one breath at a time." The hotel air conditioner pinged, metal cooling in its sleep. The TV above the bar showed a crowd at a stadium, hands lifted, mouths open. The sound was still off. Kurt watched the images with a face that hurt to look at. They want a piece of me, he whispered. Everybody. Manager, label, fans, press. When I cut what they ask for, there's always more underneath. I'm afraid I'm hollow. Not hollow, Ozzy said. Carved. Tell me something true, Kurt said abruptly. Tell me something no one puts in a magazine. Ozzy leaned forward. All right, here's one. I don't win against the dark. I negotiate with it. I tell it what it can't have, my kids, my mornings, my music. Some days it laughs at me. Fine. I laugh back later. Another truth? I didn't start getting better because I hated who I was. I started because I saw a glimpse of who I could be and I liked him. Kurt looked up slowly, the way you look up after a wave passes and you realize you're still on your feet. Here's another, Ozzy added. Art is a light you aim into your own cave. If it only blinds the crowd, it isn't doing its job. The piano in the corner tried a note, a janitor passing, hands curious. It rang out slightly sour, beautiful because of the bruise. Say I try, Kurt said. Say I decide, no running, just minutes. What do I do with all this? He gestured vaguely. His chest, his skull, the ghost coiled in his spine. Give them something to carry that isn't you, Ozzy said, tapping the table. Songs that aren't a scream but a map. An acoustic record. A room with the amps turned down so you can hear yourself bleed without drowning. Kurt blinked. The idea slid into him like a blade that was also a key. You think people would listen? They already are, Ozzy said. They're listening for the next thing you'll save them from. Silence gathered between them, soft, not empty. Kurt took out a pen and wrote 3 words on a napkin. Small victories daily. You're allowed to call me, Ozzy said, pulling a card from his wallet, the edges frayed with use. When the dark gets smart, get smarter. We'll be stupid together until it quits. Kurt almost laughed. It came out as a wet breath. He folded the card like a prayer and slid it into his pocket. The city outside kept its own calendar. Days fell off the wall and collected on the floor. Kurt tried the minutes. Some of them worked. He traded the first cigarette for coffee, the first glare for a walk around the block. He called Ozzy twice, once in the middle of a day so good it scared him, once in the middle of a night that tried to eat him whole. The phone calls were short. They didn't need to be long. Sometimes hope is fluent in 2-syllable sentences. He wrote in a notebook he'd bought from a drugstore, cheap paper, the kind that absorbs confession. He wrote letters to Frances that she would read someday, if someday decided to arrive. He wrote titles for songs that hadn't been born yet. Rain in a Quiet Room, Father with Trembling Hands, Lamp in a Stairwell. He wrote words that sounded like a man talking a friend back from a ledge and realized he was the friend. In the studio with Dave and Christ, Kurt tried something he had said out loud in that hotel. He turned the volume down. The sound didn't die. It moved in closer, as if it had been waiting to speak at a conversational level all along. The microphones caught breaths between phrases, the squeak of fingers sliding along strings, the tiny human noises that prove the machine hasn't won. There were bad days. Of course there were. On those days he lost count and reached for the old answers. But when he fell, the ground was different, less like a grave, more like a floor. He could push off it. He could find the number folded in his pocket, the one with frayed edges and an accent on the other end. He could choose minutes again, Courtney noticed. You're here, she said over dinner, surprised as if she'd found spring inside a drawer. He smiled, already suspicious of hope, but unable to deny the way his daughter's laughter rearranged the furniture in his head. Ozzy asked him once on the phone, "What's your victory today?" "I tuned a guitar in silence," Kurt said. "I didn't break it." "Mark it," Ozzy said. "Put a tick in the book. The dark hates bean counters." Kurt ticked. February wrote itself in rain on Seattle windows. Kurt returned to an old house to box up things that held too many permanent addresses in his heart. In the back of a closet, where fear loves to curl up, he found a gun he had once believed in. He sat with it on the floorboards that remembered a younger man. He held a photo of Frances. Her eyes were the same blue as clean air. On the back of the photo, still crumpled from the night in the hotel bar, was a line in Ozzy's messy hand. "See the world through her eyes." Darkness is temporary. Love isn't. He put the gun back. He called the number. It rang once. "Mate," Ozzy said. "I think I'm ready to be sick and be helped," Kurt replied. "Good," Ozzy said. "We'll be sick and be helped together." At the clinic in Los Angeles, the walls were an ordinary white that made days indistinguishable, which was perhaps the point. Kurt learned the names of his shadows in group therapy and discovered that when shadows have names, they behave better. He raged and wept and wrote and paced. He called Ozzy on Tuesdays because Tuesdays felt like a hard left turn in the week, like a place you could skid if you weren't paying attention. When he emerged, the world hadn't changed. Seattle was still wet. The press still wanted a piece of him. The label still had calendars. But the minutes were waiting where he had left them, and a man with dark glasses kept answering the phone. Nirvana talked about a pause. Kurt talked about an acoustic record that could stand up without shouting. He recorded demos that sounded like morning after a storm. Debris still visible, sun complicated but present. He wrote a chorus so simple and honest he nearly threw it away. Because simplicity is a risk when you have built a career out of intensity. There were failures. The dark is a professional. It will send you clever invitations. Kurt tore some of them up and, yes, accepted others. But even on the worst nights, he clung to a single sentence that had crawled under his ribs and nested there, not hollow, carved. Ozzy watched from stages of his own, from tour buses rattling across maps, from hotel rooms that all smelled the same. He listened to Kurt breathe over the phone and understood the winds even when Kurt didn't. He told Sharon sometimes, in the soft hour before sleep, that he felt like he was on a long-distance walk with a friend. The two of them tossing a flashlight back and forth along a path with no fences. One night, Kurt called and didn't speak for a full minute. Ozzy didn't fill the silence. When Kurt finally said, "I'm still here," Ozzy nodded into the receiver like a priest blessing a secret. "Good," he said. "That's the gig." In the spring, the city came apart as if the weather had been holding it together. News crawled across a screen. The bar's TV found its sound. Ozzy sat with Sharon's hand around his, the two of them quiet in the way people are quiet when grief is a country they have visited before and hoped never to see again. Some lights go out and stay out. Some light lingers in the eyes of those who loved it. The papers wrote what papers write. Strangers cried in public. Songs were played too loud and too softly and exactly right. And somewhere in a drawer, a notebook waited with ticks in it, marks against the dark that had not been nothing. Epilogue. A microphone and a room full of names years later. Under the clean angles of an award show stage, Ozzy stood behind a microphone and looked at a room filled with men and women who knew what it meant to be worshipped and misunderstood at the same time. He spoke without poetry and therefore with more of it. "One reason I'm here," he said, "is to say that surviving is a kind of art. Some of us make it, some of us don't, but the trying, that matters. If you're in it right now, pick up 1 minute and carry it to the next. If you love someone who's in it, stand near. Don't fix them. Hold a light." He didn't say Kurt's name because he didn't have to. The crowd heard it anyway. The applause was not loud. It was long. Coda, the listener. Maybe you're hearing this in a dim room, phone humming warm in your hand. Maybe you know the hotel with no windows, the soundless TV, the drink sweating on the napkin. Maybe you know the napkin with 3 words on it, written by a man learning to stay. Small victories, daily. If any part of this story found your shadow and sat with it, remember, you are not hollow. You are carved. The shape that pain made in you is room for light. If this story moved you, subscribe to Voices of Darkness for more powerful, human, music-driven narratives. Like the video if it gave you something to carry. Share it with a friend who needs a hand on a hard night. Every share is a light you pass forward.